Um,
Okay. Hello. Oh my goodness. Okay. Hello, Cam. Hello, everyone. Hang on.
Hey, Mary Lou, how are you?
I'm good. Nice to see you all. We're all over the world. I'd love to find out where everybody is. Elise is joining. She's on the East Coast. Like me, she's been back to back to back today, and it's 8 o'clock to her.
yeah.
So I said, let me do the first 15 minutes of this because she knows this, because we have this conversation, and then we'll have her join when it's time for Q&A, and
Oh,
we'll go.
that's fine. And I think we just give it a couple of minutes, Mary Lou, because I see people now logging in here from our various programs. So and then I'll do a quick introduction and then hand over to you, if that's all right.
That sounds great. Is that Haley? Hello.
Haley is there.
Hey Mary Lou, how you
Haley.
going?
Good.
See
There you are.
Great. Thank you. Nice to see you all.
You too. You too.
We had a 3-day holiday here. So as you can imagine, today is like everybody's back in school. It's full on here right now. So, but I'm happy to have this time with you all. Elise may have a glass of wine in her hand because it's night for her, but
Yeah.
it's morning for you all. Will you tell me in the chat where you all are? I'm in the San Francisco Bay Area. I'll put that here actually.
We have a couple of people out of Melbourne, Brisbane. Yeah. Hello, Georgie. Good to see you again.
Did any of you all get to see World Cup soccer?
Yes.
Good on the Matildas. It was super exciting, right?
Yeah.
Very exciting.
Was.
My daughter Darcy was there. She works for Nike. She works on that new Luna cleat made by women for women. So she was there for about a month. And she met Amy Croslin, which was so wonderful.
Oh, yeah.
Fabulous. That's great.
Yeah.
No, I was so jealous I wasn't there.
Oh, it was just an absolutely fabulous time. It really was. It really was.
Yeah.
Time. Oh
People
my gosh.
really embraced it
Yeah.
everywhere where you went, from the in stadium to like the fan zones in the city. Melbourne at one stage got a little bit of too rowdy with flares and things like that, so they shut that down.
That happens. That happens.
Yeah.
You know, and we could talk probably over a couple of cocktails or beers about what happened with the Spain FIFA president. That's like a whole conversation in itself. And are we tell me when you're ready to start, Martin, because I don't want to just
I'll give it another minute, and then I'll start it. Haley, will you record?
It's recording automatically.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Good. Perfect. All right. I'll start when it ticks over to 10:04, and then we'll go from there. Okay.
I am so grateful that I have a list of all of the companies that are here, because I'm super interested in many of them, like personally, all of them. I want to learn more.
Yeah.
So that's what we want to do with Elise too, is make sure that we have lots of time to dig in with you all about your specific business and what's happening. Because if there's anything we can do to offer support or advice or mentorship, that's what we're here for.
Good. Okay. Well, I'll kick us off, because I think Haley, if you see anybody else coming in, just admit them as they come in, and we'll get this started. So, welcome everyone. Martin Schlegel, ASTN, and I'm very delighted to welcome our partners from Women in Sports Technology, Mary Lou, and later Elise, who will join us. We've been now working for quite some time on the various different programs, and really excited to continue bringing some of the thinking back and forth and continuing the discussion. Before we kick off, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the country throughout Australia and recognize the continuing connection to land, waters, and community. And we'd like to pay our respect to them, their cultures, and to the elders both past and present. And it's obviously very important from our perspective, Mary Lou, just for your information, we will have a referendum in Australia in October to basically vote on a change to the constitution. And I won't go into detail, but it's part of what's being discussed at the moment, how to close the gap between indigenous and non-indigenous people in Australia, but also to recognize in some form not only the contribution but their role in society. So with that, the WiST and ASTN partnership has brought a number of different aspects to our program. And as Mary Lou was indicating, one of the things that we always find is that when you are a sports tech company in Australia, as we say, you're born global, but you die local, which means we're a small country, 26 million population. If you work in sport, which is a small part of the economy here, and then you work in technology, you are in a niche of a niche in a small market. So our companies have to set their sights onto reaching global markets. And this was really the idea between the partnership, to explore how can the partnership actually advance the ambitions that our founders have, particularly because we regard the North America market as one of the most important markets in terms of sports technology. It's a very mature market. It's obviously a very large market in terms of all the sporting activities going on, but more so because WiST has been a leader and a thought leader and also leading by practical examples programs on how to change the ratio in the industry, because as everybody knows, sports technology, women founders are significantly underrepresented. If you compare it to other industries, like the creative industries, real estate, or even any social community industries. And so therefore this exchange has been very, very valuable, not only for the ASTN, but also for the startups. And we're very excited, and we have a group of different founders on the call today from various programs that I'd like to acknowledge. Obviously, the Queensland state government, which has helped us to deliver now our program called Advancing Female Founders, and also to the Victorian government under our ASICI funding, and I think from here on there's a couple things, Mary Lou, as you were alluding to, that you want to share with us, but also you want to learn about the startups and the founders on the call. So yes. I'll leave it to you, and I see Elise has joined us as well, and welcome and good evening to you. So I know, Elise, you're obviously on the East Coast. But Mary Lou, do you want to start that we go around and have everybody introduce themselves, or do you prefer to dive right into what you want to present?
Wonderful. Well, thank you for the introduction. I'm so delighted to be with you all. We are we are all birds of a feather. Elise and I, we are very much startup people. So I have been a multiple time founder. I love this industry of sports tech. I would love very much to run around the room and have you all introduce yourselves. And I'll tell you a little bit more about my own background, how I got here. And then I'll run through a brief presentation. This is the way probably makes sense to work together, is I will share my screen and just run through an overview for you all about why culture matters beyond the social justice of it. The good business sense. I have some specific steps for how to build a more diverse and inclusive culture. And then very much want to answer your questions for us about WiST. And then I will talk with Elise. Elise and I will have a brief dialogue about our own experiences. I have some questions for her. But then we really do want to dig in specifically to your own questions. And learn as much as we can about your own businesses so we can support you from here. Australia, you don't give yourself enough credit. I think we all have so much respect for what's happening in sports and sports tech there. What you just did with the Women's World Cup is also a perfect example of how the country is moving towards supporting women's sports, women in this industry, and every aspect. We're just delighted to be here. So yes, why don't we go around the room? I don't know how to do it. How do you want to coordinate this? And I could just ask each person in the order that I see you, or you can just jump in spontaneously. I've been a professor, so I know there's popcorn where I can just like call on you. I don't know if that's the best way to do it.
I'll jump in first if that's all right.
Perfect.
I'm Will from Perth, one of the founders of Omni. The co-founder Zach couldn't make it; he's on another meeting. But this is really good timing for us. We're kind of just hiring our first few employees at the moment, so conducting interviews. So it'll be really good to have this thought in mind as we're going through and trying to, I guess, embed the culture initially.
Wonderful. Will, nice to meet you. And I have to selfishly say, I'm interested in your product. I'm training for the New York City Marathon right now, and I've got my Garmin and my Aura, and I understand you can do hydration and all these biomarkers with my existing devices. Is that right?
Yeah, we'll have to talk off there, definitely.
Very cool. Awesome. Nice to meet you. Who wants to jump in? Georgie, is that you? You're muted, sadly. I want to hear you, but I think you're muted.
Okay, I'm here. Hello. I'm not sure how much detail you want from us. I'm the founder, the sole founder of Digital Art Projection, and for 10 years I've been creating immersive, interactive installations in public space. So using motion capture to activate real-time animation and sound. And always working with dance productions and, very creative. But my partner is a world champion martial artist, and he's invented a new Queensland sport called Thunderball. And so this game happens in a space. And so our plan is to combine sport and art, which we call SPART. And so the walls of that space become touch screens. And so what you get is a blending. So it's like a real-time physical game. And gaming is the most progressively growing industry for young people. And so, yeah, I'll just leave it there because there's a lot of layers to it, but that's sort of where we're heading. Yeah.
Super, super exciting. I would learn more about that. Thank you for sharing. And go ahead. I mean, it goes without saying to connect with me and Elise on LinkedIn, and that way we can definitely share our calendar with you and find time beyond this to meet as well, if you'd like.
Dean, do you want to go next?
It's a lot easier when you just picked, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, so my name is Dean. My business is called Brantham. So I've been around music my whole life. Music is my life. And I've always believed that music is a great connector of people, and that it's really underutilized, especially when connecting brand to whether it's their own people or whether it's their fans. When I heard Amy Crosland talk about sports tech and how it sort of, there's a wide range of usages in sports tech, and media and advertising is one of them. So I really wanted to explore how music can be used to connect with people more in the sports industry, whether it's through sponsorship tiers and using music as an additional sponsorship tier for corporate, or even like what I did the other day, engaging 350 people in a room of non-musicians, and whether or not a whole stadium would do that, and just be a rhythm machine, and just the power of that could be so great at a halftime. I don't know, but like I'm here and I'm exploring music in sports tech.
Fantastic. So nice to meet you. We work with DJ Heat, who is the DJ for the Washington Mystics and Washington Wizards. So if there are connections we can make for you here, we love the combination of music and sports and technology for sure. It's very much a part of, music is very much a part of sports. So awesome.
Fantastic. Thank you.
I'll pick the next one of our startups. Emma?
Good morning and good evening, everybody. I'm Emma, and I'm the director and founder and solo staff member of a company called Pitch It Up. We have a cricket training product that is a training aid that's used for children of all abilities. So it's not just for, children of general cricket, but we're also expanding more recently into inclusive cricket, which is a growing area in the Australian industry here. And more recently, I've also explored the use in blind cricket with one of the Australian blind cricket team members. So we're using the product in domestic circumstances, also with schools, and more recently into those other areas, as I said, about all abilities and blind cricket. We're currently just in Australia, so in our just under 2 years, we've managed to expand to 32 retailers so far, and that's still growing. And I'm looking for the opportunity to expand into international markets and how best to do that.
Fantastic. Really nice to meet you. And I appreciate very much the focus on accessibility. If I heard you right, what is blind cricket for blind athletes?
Correct. Yes.
It's amazing.
I guess this is where our first focus was, looking at the product for junior cricketers, but it's very quickly expanding to be suitable for adults of all abilities, as well as the blind cricketers as well.
Fantastic.
It's a little bit unique in cricket because there's not a lot of focus on blind cricket as a sport, yet there's actually a lot of participants worldwide and some high profile competitions as well.
Absolutely fantastic. That, I wonder what is your version of Paralympians? We call them that here, athletes with disabilities. I was just at the USOPC Performance Summit, and there's a lot of focus in our country on accessibility for disabled athletes across the board. So I think your timing is absolutely spot on.
Thank you. And I guess with cricket growing very widely in America in particular, it's an emerging market, which I think has the potential for an easy launch platform, or I don't think there's a lot of people in America focusing on that, and Australia being a cricket country, it could potentially be an avenue for significant growth.
Yes, and let's come back to that. I mean, the CEO of Microsoft, Satya Nadella, is building a cricket field in Seattle because he's a rabid cricket fan. Do you already know this, Martin?
No.
Do you know about this?
Yeah, because when he visited Australia, he had 2 requests. One, he wanted to visit Cricket Australia, and the second one, he wanted to go into the MCG, which is the MCG is the Melbourne Cricket Ground, the big stadium.
The hallowed ground, the MCG. I can't believe I didn't know that. Okay, got it.
So I'm not surprised.
Very cool. Very cool.
Thank you.
Thanks, Emma. Isabel?
Yes, hello. Lovely to meet you all if I haven't met you before. My name's Isabel Flint. I'm co-founder of Make Sports. and we're based in Suncorp Stadium, Brisbane. So we've just had the whirlwind of the World Cup on our doorstep, which has been amazing here. We're a sports marketing company creating collaborative sports marketing models for the industry. So I'll talk a bit more at the conceptual level, but we're interested in cross-sport digital infrastructure, cross-sport resources, cross-sport loyalty principles for the more casual fan. Really just aiming to unlock new revenue streams, which can only be accessed at a less fragmented level when you aggregate the power of sports bodies and clubs together.
Fantastic. This is very much, Elise, you'll be able to speak to this with the work you all are doing with Underdog. I think Elise, it will join us in a little bit. As I mentioned, she's our board chair. She's my dear friend. She's joining us, but because she's been back to back, Elise, I wanted you to have time to grab dinner and a glass of wine, but you can join us whenever you'd like.
I'm going to be eating while you are all talking and off camera, if that's okay. I literally just spent 2 hours on the phone with the NBL based out of Australia. So it's my 4 hours for this evening are all about everything in sports in Australia. So it's perfect timing. Thank you. I'm going to eat while I'm listening.
Perfect. And I'm glad that you are listening because you're getting the background on who we're talking with. So that's perfect. Okay, let's see who's next.
Lisa Marie.
Good morning. How you guys going?
Good.
Awesome.
Hi. So I am a founder of a design business called Lisa.Design, where I create bright, colorful murals and graphic designs. And they're designed to empower people and give them feelings of hope and joy. So I recently attended the Female Founders event a couple of weeks back, and my interest was piqued because I also did see Amy Croslin, and I thought how I could take surface pattern design and implement it into the sports world with like textiles or event spaces, doing murals for that. I'm not quite sure, but I'm just happy to kind of just be in the room and see where it can go.
Fantastic. Very nice to meet you.
You too.
Yeah. And Lisa Marie, that's actually a good indication of what we're trying to encourage others to do. If you're in an adjacent industry, think about what you do and the skill set you have, how that can add value to sports. So that is exactly what we're trying to encourage.
Great.
Yep.
Good to know.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, you're right. It's encouraging to hear because I just sort of applied for this program thinking, oh yeah, I'll just throw my hat in the ring and see what happens. So it is good to know that you're looking for businesses like myself, because I'm kind of like, I'm not sure what I can do, but I'm just happy to meet people and get pointed in the right direction. So
every role in sports business is powered by technology and innovation. So everyone is not an engineer or product designer over here, or nothing would ever be sold, or there would be no go-to-market that ever happened without the marketing, design, the brand, all of that. So super, super important part of this ecosystem, Lisa Marie. Nice to meet you.
Thank you.
Yeah. And Nat?
Yeah, g'day everybody. My name is Nat Gilbert. I'm the Managing Director of Pro Sport Coach, and we help community sports clubs to be a thriving presence in the community. We help them very much at a practical level in terms of resourcing them to have what they need to build their capacity and thrive. So I'm particularly interested in what you've got to say today. Mary Lou, I think, I'm not sure if you're aware, but in Victoria, there is a really big push at the moment at a state government level to promote inclusion for women and girls in sporting environments and sporting communities. So it's a really, really good time to build my knowledge and learn some more.
Fantastic. Are you focused mostly on recreational club, like youth club sports, youth sports?
Yeah, predominantly it's sports clubs. I know it's a little bit different in Australia compared to America, but predominantly sports clubs aren't run in schools. They're run in sort of local areas, and most of the participants are children and young people.
Fantastic. I was the president of our local soccer club here. I coached my kids for 10 years, and I'm amazed now that the resources available for the coaches, for the administrators, for everybody who's running it. It looks like you have quite an array of support and resources to offer. So good on you. And yes, we have content that's specifically geared for high school students, high school girls.
Yep.
To keep them in sports and STEM, because they quit at twice the rate of boys by the time they're 14. So we want to make sure you have access to that. And that could be an event you hold. There's all kinds of things we could do to support your growth there.
Yeah, great.
And the growth, and to provide value to your customers at the end of the day.
Yep. Fantastic.
Yep.
All right. Thank you. Sounds good.
All right. So I think in the interest of time, if I surveyed the list of participants, I'd like to obviously acknowledge Hayley Priestnell, our membership and programs manager, Cam Vale, our general manager, Craig Hill, the co-founder and one of the mentors, Guy Bracher, another mentor, and John O'Connor, who are also a mentor, who are on this call.
Wonderful.
And maybe, Mary Lou, you were saying you wanted to share a couple of things?
I'll share my screen and we can just jump in.
Mm-hmm.
What this will be is I'll try to spend 8 to 10 minutes. That would be my promise to you, is not to have it be too long. But what I want to do is just walk you through kind of why we're here, why WiST exists. And I can give you, okay, can you see my screen, everybody? Can you see it?
Yes, it's coming up.
Yep. Awesome. Okay, so essentially inclusion drives innovation. I want you to know I am not an elite athlete. I'm an elite athlete wannabe, but I have been an athlete my entire life. I ran my best marathon time 30 years ago with, fun fact, a Diet Coke and a banana for breakfast. No other hydration. It's unbelievable that I did this when I did it. And you can see there I am as a young high school girl hurdler. You see all the fans in the background. So as I had 2 daughters who were athletes, they both ended up playing in college and professionally, one in the NWSL and one in Europe. My husband played football in college. When I discovered sports tech about 15 years ago, it wasn't even a thing. It was like, before we knew what that was, but it was exploding. And now we're all in the right place at the right time, because sports tech is absolutely taken off globally. I have worked in a number of really interesting businesses focused on sports performance, on athlete performance, as opposed to fan engagement, sponsorship, ticket sales, which is another aspect that I love learning about. I love learning about the betting, the gaming, the front and back office of sports technologies. But my focus has mostly been around athlete performance. And I was tired of I really was annoyed, more than tired. I was annoyed that I was the only woman in the room, almost in every conference I went to, every investor meeting. And it just didn't make any sense, because the men that I worked with wanted to find a way to find more women, athletes, sports fans, who could work for them in a number of roles. And also the women that I met didn't know about the opportunities. So what we did with WiST, we founded this 6 years ago, and really are here to drive transformative growth opportunities for everyone here on this call, myself included, so that we can keep growing, keep innovating, and understanding the benefits of having a more diverse workforce. So let me go here. At the end of the day, you all, we're tech companies, but sales, product, and marketing are all super important, but talent drives all of that. So how can we help you succeed? By helping you identify, learn how to hire, learn how to manage really diverse talent. This matters, as I said, because every role in sports is powered by tech and innovation. really important for your ongoing innovation and success. And then retaining this talent is equally important. So 80%, 4 out of 5 of adults today, diversity and inclusion are not a preference, they're a requirement. They're more attracted to organizations that have a diverse workforce, a clear path to promotion, and a commitment to creating an inclusive environment. That's the reality check. So what do we mean? Let me get a little bit, I'll start to define some things just so we're all on the same page. What do we mean by diversity? Inherent diversity are biological traits such as race, gender identification, sexual orientation. Acquired are things you gain from experience like your economic background, cultural experiences, and situations that can have an impact on your thought process. The business case for diversity is clear, no surprises. Gender diverse, ethnically diverse teams far more likely to succeed in terms of average revenue and profits. They're more innovative. Workplaces with more diversity are twice as likely to be more innovative in their field. The productivity is undeniable. So diverse teams solve problems faster and better than cognitively similar people up to 90% of the time. As I mentioned with recruitment and retention, most women will for sure consider the diversity of the leadership team specifically before they decide where they're going to go to work. So now let's talk about equity. Equity is fair treatment, access, and advancement for each person in an organization. Equity often involves issues related to fairness in pay, opportunities for advancement, and fairness in daily work experiences. We do not all start on the same starting line. Many of us are born with privilege that is you may not even be aware of until you get out into industry and you recognize how much we want to work to have this isn't about equality, about treating everyone the same. It's about making sure people have equitable access to opportunities and that they're managed in a way that is inclusive and respects their culture. So let's dig into inclusivity for a minute too. Diverse numbers alone don't drive the performance advantage. It's the workplace experience that enables people to do their best work and thrive. In an inclusive workplace, people feel respected, accepted, supported, and valued. So leadership sets the tone, and an inclusive workplace is characterized by responsibility and accountability for DEI across leadership, not just the HR. And some companies do not even have HR. So it's even more important, especially for founders, to understand their responsibility. It's equality, openness, and belonging, fairness and transparency regarding access to resources and opportunities. So some specific things to think about are to work with your team to build trust, create a safe environment where you express your vulnerability, including your own. We've seen this play out where when George Floyd was murdered in our country, I'll give you examples where I can. Leaders didn't have all the answers for how to address that. It's important to express your vulnerability, including your own as a leader, and ask for people to help you as you're working to build a trusting environment. Have empathy for others' lived experiences. Actively work against discrimination and subordination. Being aware of it is the first step. Who gets coaching and attention from you? Just think about your team. Is it your buddy that's just like you played football with? Or is it the person who's maybe bringing you a different idea, something that may even be different from your own? Whose mistakes are forgiven? When you're innovating, you will make mistakes. In fact, if you're not failing, then you're not taking enough chances. So whose mistakes are forgiven? Who speaks up and is respected, again, for having a different opinion? Celebrate cultural differences, which I think you all do so beautifully in Australia, by virtue of, Martin, the way you opened our meeting. We can learn a lot from you in Australia, by the way. Honor others' humanity. I think it's important it gives your business deeper meaning. I mean, how do you want to win? Embrace a wide range of styles and voices. This is acknowledge your own personal biases because we all have them. And then recognize others. So now I'm sure you all are aware of unconscious biases, but let's just walk through some of the ones that can come up in an interview and a management process. The perception bias. I assume you all are, therefore you are. We tend to let stereotypes and assumptions about certain groups nationalities, races, where someone's from obstruct our judgment of them as an individual. The personality error. I see, therefore you are. We make an assumptions about an individual's personality based on a few limited data points. Maybe you have one bad interaction with someone who's having a really bad day. You have no idea what people are walking around with. Don't let that one interaction jade you going forward and make assumptions about this person based on just a few limited data points or one interaction. In-group, out-group. We show affinity to social groups we feel a part of. This is great with sports rivalries, right? Here in the United States, college rivalries are very, very strong. I grew up hating anything or anyone associated with Duke University because I'm a Tar Heel from Chapel Hill, North Carolina. That makes no sense. That's silly. In fact, as an adult, most of my adult friends more went to Duke than went to Carolina. So, you know, you have that in Australia. You know, we all know what that sports rivalries are like. So then the like me bias, you are like me, therefore I like you. We tend to associate with individuals who we believe are like us, maybe from our same hometown or have our same style or the way we dress or the sports that we do. That's not something to judge someone on. Confirmation bias, we tend to only consider information that confirms our point of view. This is where you have everyone homogeneously sitting around the conference room, all nodding and agreeing with the leader. I don't think you want that as a leader. You want people to have the courage to stand up and give a different point of view. So now more kind of specific things in hiring. I wanted you all to be able to walk away with some best practices. We curate these. They're based on our experience and current knowledge. Nobody's mastered this, by the way. We're all students of this. We can all be better. So these are just suggestions. When you're hiring, insist on a diverse pool and a diverse slate of talent for hiring and promotion. Establish objective criteria for assessment. Avoid language like culture fit and instead focus on culture add. Don't just hire someone who's going to come in with the exact same point of view as you have. And you want to demand accountability from your managers as they are hiring. Be conscious of the impact of referral-only hiring. And that is a thing for sure in tech, right? There, people get bonuses, which is fraught. You get a bonus for referring your buddy to be hired. Structure interviews with skills and competency-based questions, not just where did you go to school, who are your buddies, where are you from, but focus on skills and competency. And then again, insist on a diverse interviewing panel. With our WiST fellowship program, we have at least 5 very diverse people read every application of every student that comes in. And the same goes for the interview panel. I can't tell you the times that I have been involved in presenting myself for roles where it was, you know, 3 30-year-old white guys who think all the same. They're not. I've been fortunate that I've met men who hire who were looking for someone diverse. In many cases, I was the only person on the team over 40, only woman, only mom, but I'm also their consumer. So it's just super important that you bring as diverse a team as you can when interviewing. In managing, make the unwritten rules obvious. There may be gaps around speaking up or disagreeing with the boss or informal networking opportunities. Don't overlook the little things that might make some of your team members feel uncomfortable. A friend of mine is a Google engineer who's losing his sight, and his team went for team bonding activity to go skeet shooting. That's just not thoughtful. And of course, he doesn't feel included, even though he's a superstar on their team. Advance diversity and inclusion in your everyday activities. So challenge inappropriate microaggressive behaviors in the moment. If you can't do it in the moment, gather your words and then come back to the team, speak to this person privately, let the team know that this is not going to be accepted, right? This is the tone that you set as the leader, and you're baking DEI into the DNA of your business right now. If you want to grab your phones, there's a resource page here in case you would like to keep, hopefully, researching some of our favorite things on this topic. You know, as I said, none of us are perfect at this, and it's an ongoing learning experience. But I do think, and if you have resources you'd like to share with us, let me know. I'm hoping that that QR code works for you. My favorite book for any founder out there is Think Again by Adam Grant. We just can't, it's super important as a founder to think so outside of your box and so outside of anything that may have been your experience before. Okay, so now let me stop sharing and talk with my friend Elise, but first let me introduce you to my friend Elise. Elise, tell everyone about yourself, your background. How did you end up working with us here at WiST? Hello, hello.
Okay, that's a mouthful. Okay, great to be here. Thank you. I have had the honor and the pleasure, first of all, of spending some time with your fearless leader, Martin. Huge, excellent human. So that is really, really important because we are way across the pond and we only want to deal with excellent humans because there's great people and then there's people who think they know what they're doing. Maybe they do, but that doesn't mean that there's this kind of famous saying, which is, it is more important to be effective than it is to be right. So in our experience, and Mary Lou and I have a lot of experience with both startups as well as investors. And those that dig in their heels and are sure they are right are missing something. So that's if you leave this meeting today with nothing else, please leave this meeting with that. More important to be effective than it is to be right. So Mary Lou and I go back about 5 years. She started with 6 years ago. A little bit about my background, as you could tell, I'm a New Yorker. I use my hands. I talk a lot. I do my best to try to not do this, but when you're my age, you're like, all right, it is what it is. I spent 17 years at the National Hockey League. And for any of you who know the sport, it's ice hockey. I worked for the league, which is focused on men, but I also played when I was in college on the women's team. And when I was playing, there was this hope one day that, oh my gosh, maybe women's hockey will be a thing and it will be in the Olympics. And that did come true. So I recognize and understand that if you can dream it, you can do it. And after I graduated from school, I went down to Wall Street. We're going to talk about that another day. But then I started working at the NHL, and my job was launching 10 new NHL teams in 10 years across North America. And the reason that became important was because, similar to how startups work, every team operated as a startup. They had a blueprint, yes. They had a mothership, yes. But they were doing their own thing in a new marketplace, and they had to find go to market fit, and they had to find who was going to purchase their tickets, and they had to find, if I have a crappy team, what am I going to do off the ice? Again, startups, whether they've already got some early stage wins or whether they're totally brand new, there is a mindset about how to do it. And the mindset is, just because we've done it before doesn't mean it's going to work today. And so it's always a little bit different, a little bit iteration from what worked then to what's going to work now. After I left the NHL, I went down into what is known as now sports tech, this concept of technology that is built for sports. For decades, from all the years that I worked at the NHL, sports were a Luddite when it comes to digital transformation. That's because their business model is very different from other business models that you will see in other verticals. Their business model is focused on broadcast rights. Those are, the big broadcast and media companies that pay billions of dollars for the right to air these games live. Sponsorship, which is brands wanting to associate with the properties. Merchandise, which is, obviously I have my branded t-shirts and my branded jerseys and I want to sell them and make money from them. And then there's tickets, there's gates. Those are the 4 core ways sports properties generate their revenue. So they're going to cater to those 4 core business cycles before they cater to anything else. And that's one of the reasons why technologies and innovations weren't built for sports, because sports people didn't understand the value of what was being delivered. So when sports started integrating technologies, they were technologies that were built for other verticals and then had to be repurposed for the world of sports. So they were very clunky and it was a problem. So over the course of the last 10 years, all of a sudden, technologies that were built for health, wellness, fitness, broadcast, entertainment, that started to gain traction in the world of sports, all of a sudden everybody's like, oh, look, I have a Fitbit. Oh, look, I have an Oura Ring. Oh, look, I have this. Oh, look, I have that. Wasn't built for sports, was built for something else. But it was adopted by the world of sports, adopted by athletes, started to gain celebrity, started to gain traction. The investors who invest in you all of a sudden took another look, and they came up with this understanding, which is so critical now, is that when you invest in a technology that is built for sports, if it becomes ubiquitous, going beyond the world of sports into adjacent markets, you have a 10-time return on investment. So in my hat, that I wear 2 hats. One is I am honored to be the chair of WiST, which is, to me, the most important nonprofit that there is in the world of sports. Thank you very much to our fearless leader, Mary Lou McFarland. The second is I run the venture side of a venture studio called Underdog Venture Team. And there's 2 sides to our business. One is the venture, which is investments in early stage companies that are focused in the world of sports, health, wellness, and fitness. At least 66% of our investments are investments in female founders and founders of color, because they need our capital more than white guys, white founders. Not exclusive, but that is how we operate. We care about, like every other investor, we care about growth. We care about the founder. You've heard this classic: investors are looking for the jockey, which is the founder, the horse, which is the product, and the track, which is the total addressable market. So as investors, we're always looking to try to uncover those organizations, those companies that have at least 2 out of 3. And to me, it's always about the jockey. And I go back to the right versus effective. If I have the pleasure and the honor of meeting an early stage founder and we have a deep and honest conversation, one of the things that I have learned over decades is the red flag is, but you don't understand what I'm building. And as you could tell, I'm a little snarky. This is how I make myself heard, is when a founder says to me, you don't understand what I'm building. You don't understand what I'm talking about. That is a red flag, because maybe I don't, but maybe they have not explained it to me in a way that I can. So I'll shut up in a minute, but you are very close to the product you're building. You're the one who ideated it. You know better and best about what it is you've created it, why you've created it, and how you're going to storytell about it. But you also need to make sure that there are people out there, both consumers as well as investors, if you ever decide to raise, that are going to easily become educated, super easy, about what you're doing, what you're building, and how they can use it. And with that, I'll be quiet.
Yes, no, yes to all of that. And thank you, Elise. And the reality, to your point, Elise, is in the United States, and I imagine it's similar in Australia, 98% of venture funding still goes to not to female founders. Less than 2% goes to female founders. So we're working on changing that. And the neat thing, I mentor a female founder who I met with today earlier, and I think you're in the right place now. Like when I did my first startup in 2009, literally some things that investors said to me would blow your head off your body. They were like, well, if this was easy, more women would do it. And I'm like, well, I'm sitting right here and I'm doing it. I've raised $1 million. I have $100,000 in sponsorship money. Don't make male female comments. How that said, the time is right. The time is now. Women's sports are exploding. There is so much more recognition of the value of female athletes as sponsors, the value of having women on your leadership team. So because I do want to get granular with each of you as you'd like to, but Elise, I have a question for you that is, and I have my own thoughts that I want to share, but let's focus for a second on if you're a founding team of all white males. And I'm married to a white man. We love white men. So when we say that, please don't my husband says I have to be super careful. We love white men. Half our community are men. So that's really, really important. But if you're sitting there, maybe you don't want to have your entire leadership team homogenous. How can we help you? What's your advice to finding the talent, finding that C-suite person to join you who is different from you in some way?
Well, it's that famous saying, fish where the fish are. And if you as a founder and me as an investor, and it's not just me as a female investor, it's me as an investor.
Yep.
In today's world, and Mary Lou nailed it, investors actually are looking for diversity because they understand, appreciate, and recognize the successes that companies they invested in early on had. The more successes are the more diverse either founders or founder groups. And so any investor, at least the investors in the world that I work with, the first thing they're going to do is look at the founder or co-founders, identify what the skill sets are of those founders. And some of the first questions they're going to be asking you when you're going for a capital raise or when you're just talking to them or meeting them for coffee is you are raising so that you can bring more talent, more headcount into your companies. Tell me about what that looks like. And it is really important to understand, and don't be afraid to say, I need to bring on 3 people. One of them has this skill set, one of them has this skill set, one of them has this skill set. I'm looking for those skill sets, but I'm also looking for people who have those skill sets that come from very different backgrounds, because I need them to bring not just their skill sets, but their experience. Because if you are building something for a broad population, it could be a population of men, it could be a population of women, it could be a population of kids, but they're not just white kids or people of color or women. They are a cross section of humanity. So you want to make sure that the people who are on your team are very representative of the people and consumers you're selling to. So there's this capital importance and there's this consumer importance.
Oh, that's perfectly said. That's exactly where I was going to go too, is look at your consumers. I worked with a company called Mustard. If you look up, I can put the thing here. It was a bunch of baseball guys. They were going to be going to market with a product that is for parents of kids. They were, luckily for me and for all of us, they were smart enough to bring me in. I helped them name and brand their company. I helped them recruit their development team. But that's the key, and that was what they recognized. So your audience, your consumer base is so diverse, especially if you have anything to do with AI. You want to make sure that anyone writing your code, anyone developing your product is representative of that consumer group, right? Because bias gets built into the product, bias gets built into your marketing messaging. Those are the reasons that you want to have a diverse leadership team. Straight up, right? If you're marketing to women and you're just a bunch of guys, not going to make any sense. So, and I teed up WiST pretty well for that, because due to our partnership with ASTN, we have the WiST network, which I've posted here for you, that you have access to our candidate database. We are building it. It is a global database currently. We are absolutely building it to be bigger and better in Australia. If you are moving to the United States or expanding with your business to the United States, fabulous place to find talent is on this WiST network. So part of our agreement with ASTN is we can post your open roles. Elise and I often may even know who, this is part of what this community does, is it's all about relationships. I mean, right? At the end of the day, we are in sports tech, but again, it's all about the relationships and the talent. So that's something I really wanted to make sure to share with you all. And then another thing to think about is, you're probably, if you're going to listen to the advice we're giving you to have a diverse team interview and hire, what if you're not diverse to do that? Elise, what's your advice there? I have thoughts. Give me your thoughts first.
You turn to your network of trusted advisors and to your other founders, because everybody's part of a founders network in some way, shape, or form. And you ask them about how they do it, because chances are, if it's not you and if it's not them, it's the second person that you talk to, that you learn from each other. Going into this blind, it's kind of like junk in, junk out. And just because somebody fits a box doesn't mean they're the right fit for you. So ask for help, ask questions of your advisors, which is why advisors at this stage are so very important, because you as the founder know what you know, but you don't know what you don't know. And you're going to surround yourself with advisors who have been there. They have done that. They bring institutional knowledge. They bring other facets of experience to you as a founder to help you smooth out and navigate those places and spaces where you might not be as comfortable.
Yep. And yes, and ask your advisor, your mentor, to even interview that person with you or for you.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I think it's critically important that you hire slowly. The biggest mistake I made as a first-time founder back in 2009, 2010 was overhiring. I hired too quickly, and you can't take that back. That's the advice I share with you. Grind it out as leanly as you can, as long as you can. But this is where your secret superpowers come in. You do have to hire for your blind spots, or at least make sure you have an advisor. If you are a product person, your product will not sell itself. You need to go find the proper, appropriate talent for branding and marketing who aligns with you, and vice versa. Maybe you're a brand marketing person, but you need the most amazing person in the world to build the product with the UX that you envision and that you're promising for your customers. You all day long, you're trying to, no one knows everything about everything. I've worked for a guy who did think he knew everything about everything, and that's tricky because no one does. No one was born with every brain lead. You always have to find the person to complement you. If you're a visionary founder and you can see it and you can feel it and you can recruit people to you, that's awesome. That's the attacking center med. I can't help but football analogies because soccer's my favorite sport. You may be the attacking center mid or the forward. You can bring the money. You can be the person in the front of the house, but you need someone back here making sure you're doing everything right legally. All of your operations are sound. Your tech stack is tight. You're not spending too much on your tech stack. I'm the person that absolutely needs a very strong finance and ops person behind me. I can work on a budget and build a business model all day, but then when it's time to really build out that spreadsheet, Laura, our COO, does that for me. So that's a nice, super important thing just in terms of your founding team and who you kind of let in early on. But at the end of the day, use your advisors and mentors for support on that. I think, let me ask one more question just for us, Elise, and then we can open it up for everybody's questions. But at the end of the day, have you caught yourself in a bias, Elise? Have you caught yourself in a situation where you all of a sudden recognize, oh, I'm acting as with a bias that's now conscious? Can you give an example?
Well, sometimes every day, and I don't mean that to be, to just brush it off. I'm saying that very often. As an example, I'll be on a call with somebody that I've just met for the first time, and I shared with you that I'm a New Yorker, so I speak fast, I move fast. If I have a half-hour call, which is a 30-minute call, and it's with somebody that I don't know, but there's specific information I need to learn from them, my attitude is ask this question, ask this question, ask this. I have a litany of questions, and I don't want like this long, strung out answer. I just want an answer so that I can go on to my next question. This is how I operate. And so I assume others do. That's wrong. I should never assume that others operate the way that I do. So if I'm asking somebody about their product, and in my mind, economy of words, they could share that with me in an 11-second elevator pitch, and it turns out to be a 10-minute diatribe about their product, I will be forming an opinion, which is an unconscious bias because they didn't answer the question the way I would answer the question. But it doesn't mean that the information they're giving me is no less relevant. So I always have to catch myself that because I'm used to the way I do things, and very often a lot of the people I work with do it the same way, it's not right. It's just take a step back. And I literally say to myself, Elise, take a step back, be quiet, and listen, which is what I ultimately do. But it's a struggle because this is what I know. Doesn't mean I'm right. It's just what I know.
Well, it's true, Elise, and I have a similar experience where for me, when that happens, I'm already thinking, oh, I hope this person's coachable. I hope that they will let me share with them that when speaking to an investor, which will lead me to my own bias, when speaking with an investor, typically a very high net worth individual, white man, they're not going to have, they're ADD. They don't have time for your long description or your long explanation or a lot of words on your investor presentation. I learned this the hard way too. I've probably presented well over 100 investors, and I could maybe say maybe 1 or 2 female investors. But so I learned how they roll, how their brains work. But I was going to tell you that's one of my biases. Is when I do meet one of these very uber powerful, men in our country, I will tend to have an opinion that this person maybe is not inclusive, or maybe, because of my lived experiences, I tend to start to have a feeling that about how they may react to me that may not be true at all. This is the truth. There are just as many amazing investors right now who are very attuned to what it's like to talk to a female founder. They know the success rates of female founded companies. A leadership team with at least one female on it does way better historically. They know this now. So being aware of your biases is super helpful, and being coachable is one of the most important things that I would share with you. And also staying true to your own values along the way. Elise, you like to say when you add someone to your cap table who is maybe not share your values and how to treat people, how to talk with people, they're on your cap table for life. It's like a marriage. So you just have to be really, really careful. And then people say, oh, you can't be that choosy about the money you take. Keep looking. There's so much opportunity now. There's a guy, Lisa and I met in Spain at the NBA Performance Summit this summer. Lisa just met with Antonio last week. He at Apex Capital is looking to invest in female founders in sports tech globally. He's in Portugal. That's fantastic. So this is a small world. This is a small world, this global community that we're in. And that's what I'm grateful to WiST. My favorite reward of everything that we've done with WiST is being able to advise you, who I am just like you in terms of any founder. I totally get you 100,000%. And we can advise you. We can point you in the right direction. We can save you some pitfalls or landmines, right, that I experienced when I was presenting. You need 10 to 12 slides. They are tight, aren't they, Elise? We like it tight. Problem, solution, total addressable market, go-to-market, business model. Show your focus, show your priorities and your focus. You will get funding. We can help you with that. That's the good news about this. So that's maybe a good segue to any specific questions any of you want to ask. Does anyone want to put their investor presentation up for us to just run through? Anybody feel comfortable to do that? Or just ask specific questions about your own journey to fundraise, or your own journey to build a diverse team, your own journey to build a business model. We want to help you with that. This is what we love doing. It's what gets us out of bed, frankly, is to be able to help you succeed.
I guess I'll jump in. Thank you so much just for the last hour or so. It's been really insightful, and I've been thinking a little bit about what we're doing at the moment with setting up an advisory board of sorts of former C-suite sports execs with specific skill sets across legal, governance, commercial, technology, to really form a little cross-sport group that can look at what we're doing and guide us along the way towards some fundraising objectives over the next 6 months. And I was looking at that list. There's 7 at the moment that we're trying to finalize, and there's only 2 women. And the thing that strikes me there as well is not at all racially diverse. And I don't know how much that's because of the pool that we're fishing in terms of former sports execs, or if there's something that we can do to really be conscious of that. Yeah.
So in terms of finding more people of color specifically is what you're suggesting, and more women, or just more diversity in general for your advisors?
I think, yeah, I mean, Australia is Martin, you say niche of a niche and a small market in terms of sports in Australia. So I'm not sure whether that plays a factor in how we find how a cross-sport group of advisors ends up looking, or whether there's something that we can do to really seek out more racially diverse and gender diverse too.
Well,
So
Elise, you go, and then I have thoughts.
yes, and what you're facing in your marketplace is not unusual, and I mean, where you are, if you take a look at the sports executives that operate in Australia, I know because I just got off a call with 10 of them. They were all white guys, every single one of them in there. The youngest was probably in their late 50s. All right. And this is who they are. And okay, where you are is where we were in the States 20 years ago. So to your point, it is very hard in the beginning to be able to be able to access institutional knowledge that is a more modern era. Sports is a Luddite in many, many ways. This we understand. One of the ways that at least early stage companies that I have met, and we look at companies all over the world, but those that are not don't come from an area that has a lot of diversity simply because they're just, maybe they were on the field, but they weren't in the front office. is certain skill sets that are required. You don't have to stay in the world of sports. You just need to be able to access the skill set. So very often, you know, especially those facets that are newer on the landscape, like social, like commerce, e-commerce, you know, like marketing. Many times you actually don't want a sports executive for that, because they're going to bring you their old line thinking. You really want somebody who comes from a far more modern, if you will, or iterated marketplace. Like they could come from tech, they could come from retail. You know, those are places that are far more advanced in their marketing and in their branding than sports will ever be. So that would be you're sighing because the information I've shared with you, like, yeah, I've been there, done that.
No, it's it all makes sense. Yeah, and I'm agreeing with what you're saying. It's what I'm a young female founder in sports that grew up in individual sports, gymnastics, all-star cheerleading, which is coming to Australia. They're getting very good at it here. Born in London and have moved over here, so I'm pretty fresh in Australia and in the sports industry. But that concept of bringing retail or other industries knowledge into sports, and probably dispersed with some of the sports execs, so that we can actually take our new ideas into a space that they actually work in the real world as it is now. We need to be able to give it to current sports execs. So I think, yeah, trying to broaden our sights beyond.
And I'm just going to add one more thing to that. And Mary Lou touched on it, and I think it's really important. There's a chicken and the egg situation here. You, as an early stage startup, want to be able to surround yourself with advisors that are credible, valuable, and have institutional knowledge. They either have skills-based knowledge, or they literally have institutional knowledge. The reason that becomes important is when you go to do one of two things: either you go to fundraise, or you're going for strategic partnerships. You're selling into other sports properties. Those advisors are going to be the ones to help you make that leap. Rarely will a sports property take your call or your email, but they will take a call or an email from one of your trusted advisors who has institutional knowledge and a strong network in the world of sports. So that's why you need to have that balance.
Thank you.
I totally agree with all of that. And I would also say, take your time in putting your advisory group together. Like dig a little, take us extra time to dig a little bit deeper. I just sent you all, there's a link here to the WiST community. It's a closed group. You're all welcome to join it, but look there, right? Look on our website at our advisors and our board members, and go into LinkedIn, anyone that's affiliated with WiST, because you'll find quite a bit of diversity across all aspects. And these are people who are here. We're only here to help others and to pay it forward, right? We're only here to help you with that. And if I don't, maybe Elise or I know someone. If we don't, someone else knows someone. But just to also post it in the LinkedIn community group. Who knows someone who with experience in whatever it is you're looking for? But I think it's important to be deliberate, and yes, look for all different skill sets and domain expertise, as Elise said, because you really do. And you just have to look a little bit harder. That's all. The people are here now. You just have to look a little bit harder. We had a guy on one of our fireside chats tell his wife that morning before our chat, how can I hire more women? I just get 100 resumes of white guys. And she's like, well, you have to work a little bit harder. And then he found out from us, we're doing that. Like, it's happening. We have amassed a community at this point that you're going to be able to find it if you dig. The people from Wasserman, right? People from Elise in sports marketing, you're going to Next League. You should be talking to our people at Next League. Like, they're just so many ways for you to find who you're looking for. You just do have to look a little bit harder.
Broaden the sights. Appreciate that.
I have one question, if there's time. It's
course.
not so much about hiring staff per se, but because I'm new to this this world, how do you protect your idea when you're looking for an investor or you're looking for people to work with that you want to go on this journey with your product? How do you protect your idea? Because obviously this sport is a new sport. It's a new sport and it's a new technical application. Yeah, how do you protect the IP on it while you're developing it and trying to bring in people and get their advice and also find investors and find a team to work with?
Elise, you go first, and then I'll tell you what I recommend.
So it depends on which country you're domiciled in, right? If you're domiciled in the US,
Australia.
okay. If you're in the just giving you some examples. If you're in the US, and you have a concept or an idea or a technology that is new, the way that you protect it is by doing a number of things. One, applying for a trademark. Two, applying for creating what they call a technology moat, an IP moat, because very often if you're a tech first company, if God forbid your company goes south, your technology is still worth something, and very possibly that technology will be acquired. But what makes it so unique and what makes it so viable is that you've got it patented, so nobody else can do what you've created. So those are two things that are very important. That's in the States. I don't know what it's like in Australia. Martin or Cam, you may know better than you certainly know better than I do about what protections founders need to go through to be able to protect their IP and build IP moats. Do you guys have any suggestions on that? And I know, Mary Lou, you probably do as well.
Yeah. So in a similar way, you have a portfolio of patent, and there's innovation patents and other classes. So you could go that route, but also trademarking in a similar way. And we here in Australia then look at those kind of things actually translated across a number of jurisdictions. There's things like Madrid Protocol and Georgie, we will talk about that in more detail in our program a little bit later.
Yeah.
And the second aspect, and Elise, you were also talking about this separating in Australia the IP, which is sitting in a particular vehicle, from the operational side is done in a way. And I'm not going to jump ahead because we also have a session about that in our program later on. But there's similar concepts then in Australia as well.
Okay, thank you.
And just quickly, if I can, Georgie, I think so. Developing a new sport is very exciting. Just a couple of things. Don't underestimate how conservative the sports industry can be. So if you're worried about it, who's going to take it up and sort of steal it, it's almost going to be the opposite. You get the people saying, well, it can't work. It's not a traditional sport. Yeah. And just one of my little sayings, especially in sport, is you can't sell a secret. So you do need to talk about it. You do need to be able to take that, certainly the legal side of anything that needs to be, protected. And Elise's comment is really important about, the technology of the product, even if the business isn't successful, is still potentially valuable. But practically, you're in a really good area, I think, and therefore, generally speaking, the sports world and people around will be conservative, and even investors. So talk it up. Don't be afraid of what somebody might do or steal. I think it's such a small risk compared to the opportunity. Glass half full.
Can I just add to that, Georgie? I've thought the same things over the last years, and one thing that I've learned about what I produce is that you have a unique thumbprint that, you know, nobody can really create it like you. And there's always going to be people out there who, whether or not they hear about it, they won't be able to replicate it because it's coming from you.
And from my specific experience.
And the innovation
skill
and
set.
creativity is coming from you. So like, you'll get more benefit from speaking to people and more people helping you than less people helping you if you actually talk about it and get people excited and involved in it. So,
and you get better at your 10-second elevator pitch as well, Mary Lou, no? Right? You get that shortened each time you talk about it. So, okay, thank you so much. Yeah.
I mind if I add something too? Sorry. Sorry.
No, go.
I was just going to say, I've got a technical background. I'm a scientist, and one thing you can do, Georgie, if you're getting involved in some fairly detailed discussions with people before you launch into that, if it's an official meeting as such, you could actually get them to sign a non-disclosure agreement.
Yeah, they hold, do they? No,
it's more, I guess, flagging to the person that you're talking with that you're wanting to protect your information, and by flagging that with them up front before you have that official meeting and having that discussion with them and getting something signed, alerts them to the fact that the information you're imparting has a value, and people may choose not to meet with you because of that, but that's fine. You want to meet with the people who are prepared to work with you under that condition, knowing that they can't take your what you're developing or your idea, because that you have got something that protects you in that way. I think we use them a lot in the previous.
Yeah, we usually use those disclosures as well. But I just thought there might be something more watertight, but that's all clear. Thank you.
Sorry.
Yeah, and I was going to say, I don't think, at least here, they're really hard to enforce, but we still do them anyway because it does send the message that we're about to share with you something that's proprietary, and that you're asking for that, you know, respect, and having them acknowledge it. That does give you some protection, I would say. But what I was the only thing I would add to this is, yes, spend the money with the trademark lawyer, the IP people. It's money well spent for sure. Lock up your name, lock up your logo, lock up your general, you can define your business. We did this when I did Vivo Girl Sports. And then my startup, ESPN did start to copy everything that we were doing because they hadn't launched ESPNW yet. And that's flattery when people start doing it, but we were so far ahead of them but then, you know, the resources of ESPN, what are you going to do? So what I started to say is, you're a little bit vulnerable. You're always going to be a little bit vulnerable, but they want you. ESPN ended up wanting to acquire our company, but I didn't want to move across the country to Connecticut. But it doesn't mean it wasn't an amazing experience. And my advice to you at the end of the day is run as fast as you can right now. Like, just get so far out ahead. All the cool people are on your team. Everybody's working with you. Rather than compete with me, why don't you come join me with your IP, whatever your strengths are, and let's do this together. Right?
That's awesome.
Just run as fast as you can.
Yeah, I'm trying.
Go as fast as you can. It's like, go fast forward. And then you get so far out that you've built a moat because no one can catch up to you at that point. And they want to be with you because you're the cool kid.
Thank you.
What else? Anybody?
No questions? Oh my God, that's amazing.
It's amazing. Okay, Will, tell us about when we can get your product in the United States.
Whenever Apple starts opening their doors a little bit more, they're a little bit too closed off. They make it a little bit too difficult. No, we're so essentially all the main consumer devices, Fitbit, Garmin, Apple, they all have the same sensor. So we can use any of those devices, but it's quite hard to integrate unless we want to build our own like proprietary app on each one of their platforms, which Apple wouldn't let us do anyway. So we have like a we're building a custom one at the moment that's still using someone else's device, but it's not one of the common brands that you would know. But we're working with, I think Samsung's probably been the most talkative at the moment, and trying to integrate with one of those key consumer brands.
Awesome.
It's been my experience with Samsung in that situation. If you're bringing them something that they can get before Apple can get it, they're going to be much friendlier to you than, uh, again, I work with a lot of startups, and a lot of them have a tech, a hardware fully integrated. They want to be, integrated into a Samsung tech stack, or or an Apple. And inevitably, Samsung, when they do I use the term dog and pony show, because they'll come to town and they'll bring a bunch of their executives, and they'll have, meeting after meeting with early stage startups, and because they want to bring them into their tech stack.
Yeah.
And all a startup has to do, and I'm not simplifying it, but I have seen this happen a lot, is that when they're sitting at the table and they've got 10 executives around the table from different areas of Samsung, and they're saying to you, who are you talking to about either an API or an SDK or some kind of a relationship? And you say, I'm talking to all of them, including Apple. Then Samsung starts talking a little bit deeper, because they recognize that that's their biggest competitor, and they want to be innovative, and they want to be as forward facing as they possibly can be, and future proofing both themselves as well as their offerings. And if you're saying to me, and I'm not surprised, that Apple is being really difficult, of course they're being difficult. Samsung, not so difficult.
Would it actually work the other way as well, if he went to Apple and said we're talking to Samsung, or would
No.
they not?
No.
Not in my experience.
No.
But it brings up a good point that we didn't discuss before we let you all go. I think super important to try to identify strategic investors, right? Georgie, this would be for you as well. Like, it's kind of the question you all have heard of, taking smart money, not just money, but smart money, strategic money that can help you. Super important. And you might even identify the company that down the road you think might want to buy you, right? They invest to buy. Be thinking ahead to that exit. Give it a long timeline, give it 5 to 10 years, but be thinking a couple steps ahead. Again, who you add to your cap table I think can make or break you. I mean, Elise, would you say, I mean, I don't mean to be hyperbolic, but
No, you're not
important.
being, yeah, again, with my investor hat on, one of the pain points that I see is when, to Mary Lou's point, early stage companies took money without recognizing the value of who they were taking it from. And so there's always a friends and family round, which is where you get the little drips and drabs, and your mom and your friends and your aunts and everybody and uncles, and they invested, and that's great. But that investment has to be, lack of a better word, short term, meaning when you're going to raise your next round, you're raising a seed round, and whether you raise it in a safe or a convertible note or it's a price round, whatever it happens to be, that is when you need to be very, very strategic. And what's going to happen with these larger investors, and investors are like your parents, they're going to be with you for a very long time. So make sure that there is a true alignment between who you are and the product that you're building and the company that you're generating, right? And the investors, because a lead investor is going to want to be on your board. So they are going to have a role. Not only are they giving you their money, but because they want to have a say in that money, they're going to be on your board. But you need to make sure, and I know this is so hard to do from day one, your friends and founder, your family and friends round, they get pushed out, they get bought out when you get that second round and going beyond, because they make your cap table messy. Big investors don't want a messy cap table. They just don't, because then all of a sudden you have these buyouts and you have this conversion and that conversion. And it's very difficult for a founder to keep up with all of that. But it's even more difficult for an investor who could be a perfect strategic investor for you, who's like, look at your cap table. That doesn't make any sense to me. I'm not going to deal with it. And it unfortunately happens, especially now, a lot, because capital raising is very difficult right now for all the reasons that, you know, Martin and Cam are going to share with you. But because it's that much more difficult, some people will say, well, I'm going to take money from this person or this organization or this group. And all of a sudden, it would have been nicer if you could have taken a step back and identified that person, that organization, that group, better money.
And guess what? I
And
mean, it's a
now-
flywheel. So that all makes sense,
Yeah.
right? Because it's revenue, product, marketing, revenue, as much as you can. Support yourself, keep your burn super low, do as much as you can and get as far as you can before you have to have those conversations, because you'll have that much more negotiating power. Number one. Number two, think about corporation. Make a list of 5 to 10 companies that you admire, that you could see your own business exiting to down the road. Many of them have a corporate innovation, just like Comcast. They have a corporate innovation fund. They want to invest in your business. They are trying to be current. And a lot of these giant companies and bureaucracies, they're not current. So they're looking at build versus buy. They're not going to build it. So they want to invest in you and potentially purchase your company down the road. That is smart money.
Sorry, can I just jump in there? Elise and Mary, thanks for your points. My headphones died right at the end of that, but I did hear it. I just couldn't respond. But yeah, that's definitely what we've seen. We were kind of hoping that we went out, we've done proof of concept and we're doing our like big validation study now. We kind of reached out early, hoping and trying to create some of that competitive attention, hoping someone would jump on early and be an early adopter and come along the development journey, which like to an extent want to, but yeah, that's definitely the plan, is to try and build as much competitive tension once we've completed that study. But yeah, thank you for those thoughts.
Can I ask one last question, if that's okay?
Sure.
Thanks, Mary Lou and Elise. It's great to hear and share your knowledge again with us. Just in regards to the theme of encouraging female founders and entrepreneurship in a market like ours, have you seen some interesting, I suppose, events or activities or programs outside of what you do to really encourage the female founders groups to come forward and start to promote it better?
Mary Lou, I'll let you start with that
Obviously,
one.
Underdog Ventures, what you're doing. So we're seeing some venture opportunities, and we're seeing some sort of ecosystem building opportunities like what you're doing. And we're running a female founders pre-accelerator program. But is there anything really interesting or innovative out there that you've seen that's really encouraging this sports tech ecosystem to evolve for females?
For sure. And they're coming up every day. Like, do you know the Monarch? What's Jasmine Robinson, Elise? The Monarch Collective?
Yes.
There are a number of, and I can see how many I can think of off the top of my head, but there's a number. Oh, there's an organization called ASTIA, ASTIA, that I was part of that changed everything for me, taught me everything about how to do an investor pitch, gave me mentors, gave me everything that I was looking for. So Jasmine Robinson is the Monarch Collective. I believe, Elise, aren't they specifically looking to invest in female founders? They're invested in Angel City, accelerating equity in global sports. So that's a really good example. Elise, who else do we know specifically?
Well, I mean, we know a number of investors, but you can't hear me? Okay.
Yeah, I can hear you. I can hear you.
Oh, okay. So, I mean, there are investor groups that are by women for women, right? But are you asking specifically about accelerators? Just an example. There's an organization.
Challenges.
Yeah. trailblazers,
Mass
right?
Trail and
Yeah,
Disney.
trailblazers, etc.
Right.
So
So there are two. They're not enough for my liking. Okay. Because there's still not a lot percentage-wise of female founders. Ironically, the female founders, at least in the world of sports and health and wellness and fitness, to me, are pretty amazing. There's not a lot of them. So accelerators are like they're big, capital intensive groups. So they're going to there can only be one or two to be able to surface enough of the female founders to be able to make it financially worth their while, because they have to go out and get sponsors and all that kind of stuff. So there aren't that many, but the ones that are there are very good. And then it's just there's a community that gets built up, and there's WiST that gets built up, and then those of us who invest in female founders, there's a group of us that, and we don't just exclusively share deal flow with each other. We share deal flow with everybody. But very often, really good female founders of color will come to us first, because they know that with us, there's a safe haven for an open and honest dialogue before they go out into maybe precious waters.
Yep.
That
answer your question, Craig? Does that help a little bit with what you were
Yeah,
thinking?
that helps. Yeah, that helps a little bit. Yeah, thank you.
I mean, it is the right time. I'm happy to say this is not a trend. Nothing's changed. This is not magic. This is what should be happening in this industry, right? Sports is very, very diverse. The talent is there. It's just a matter of connecting all the dots. The talent is there. The investment dollars are there. We're just here to connect all the people. And give students experience. So you'll see welcome to WiST, all of you. This goes without saying. I should have said this at the beginning. Make sure you sign up for Women in Sports Tech so you get our newsletter, right? Let us know as you are interested in hiring from our WiST network. We've already, Cam and Amy are well aware, and Haley and Martin, that this is something that is available to you all by virtue of our partnership with ASTN. So be proactive. Just be as proactive and persistent and tenacious as you can be, because the resources are there for you. You don't ever feel like you're struggling alone. If you're in a struggle, find the right people that you can just message and go, oh, I need to have you talk me through what just happened. Or as happened for me and Elise, we had a founder, an amazing PhD guy who had played football, had the worst racist experience with his investors in an accelerator program that you don't know, that I will not mention, but we were able to meet with him with the people. Remember that, Elise? We spent a couple of hours on a Saturday afternoon.
I do. We were referred to as women of Wakanda.
We were the women of Wakanda, is what this he happens to be Black, and he had just experienced just terrible things were happening. And don't struggle alone. So we'll leave you with that, maybe, because I know we all have to scoop, but don't ever feel like you're alone in the struggle, because we've all walked a mile in your shoes. Not the exact mile, but I mean, I'm telling you, this is why we're here, is to help you avoid some of this. They're landmines. They're big landmines. There may be small pitfalls. We want to help you avoid some of those things and streamline your process, so you're not, for instance, if you want us to review your investor presentation, send it to us on a Google slide. If that is to collaborate, we will give you our feedback on it. We know the investor presentations that succeed. The one I did for Mustard was in Business Insider. The CEO took credit for it. That was fine. That's the other thing that can happen with women sometimes, but that's okay. I just wanted to get the job done. At the end of the day, sometimes you don't care who gives credit to what, but you just want to get the job done. So reach out to us. We're here for you. We're delighted to meet you. I can't say enough how happy we are to be partnering with you all, Martin and Cam. So sad that Amy's not with us. I want to send her lots of love. But is there anything else for now? We've kept you guys a long time.
No, I think this has been a wonderful time to have you on this call. And as you said, Mary Lou, that this is not the last of these interactions, because as part of the partnership, the resources that you guys have created, and what I think everyone will appreciate as we continue with the program, it's about connecting these dots, and there's like those of you who've worked or lived in the US will appreciate the way of making introductions is different than the way it's done in Australia, and we will facilitate that these introductions are done in the correct way, because it's also about, and at least you were talking to that, people are time poor and have other things on their agenda, so it's really about that qualified introduction and making that connection. So thank you for sharing your insights today, and we'll continue to build on those resources, make them available, and go through a number of the questions that also have come up today. So thank you for your time.
Fantastic. Thank you for having us. We've really enjoyed it. I hope it's been helpful. We know you'll pay it forward, but also know that we're here for you. So if you need it, easy to find us on LinkedIn. Here to support you however we can. So thanks for the time.
Good.
Everybody be safe and enjoy your day.
Yes,
Have a good
please.
evening.
Have a great day,
Thanks, everyone.
everyone.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Bye.
Go Tillies.